Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us at the OE Expo. Our next presentation is on the student services projects. And it'll be a brief presentation, but the panel will be available afterwards in the lobby to answer questions if you continue to have them. And if you don't have time to ask questions afterwards, there's a evaluation form on your chair or around you where you can write down the question and turn it in a box in the back of the room, and we'll make sure you get your questions answered. And with that, please welcome the Student Services panel.
Thank you. We're pleased to be here today. We were one of those projects teams that was late getting out of the gate, and we are very excited to actually be underway now with our various activities, and very pleased to be able to share some of that progress with all of you. The co-sponsors for this initiative are Harry LeGrand, Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, who regrets that he got double scheduled and didn't realize that until this morning, and myself, Kathy Koshland, Vice Provost for Teaching, Learning, Academic Planning, and Facilities. And we've been led by our extremely able initiative manager, Ann DeLuca. And and I have to say, we had an amazing team to put together the initiative to begin with. I won't mention everybody, but it was an absolutely stellar group with whom to work, and many of them are staying engaged in one way or another as we move forward into implementation. Great. So let us just bring you up to speed on what we learned in the course of our design process. We learned that students very, very much want advising, but they want it improved. They don't want it the way they've been experiencing it probably for the last 30 or 40 years. We heard loud and clear that they want correct answers and consistent service. We heard some very interesting tales about how they try to get answers, email blasts to every advisor they can think of to see if one of them will respond, see how many of them give them the same answer, any number of stories along those lines. They want one place to get things done and to find information. They want it to be easy to navigate the kinds of things that really should be easy for them. They'd rather spend their time face-to-face with advisors talking about what really matters. And that leads us to the last thing that they want, which is personalized attention. They want someone to be able to speak with them about their future, their short-term plans, their long-term goals. And we learned, of course, what advisors want. They really want the time to provide that personalized attention to their students. They would like to be relieved of a lot of the transactional kinds of things that impede that. They want functioning databases that are synchronous and update in real time. They want to be able to share information. Right now, if a student is a double major, the advisors in each of their majors can't see what the other person has done, is telling the student, anything like that. And yet the students assume, of course, that we're talking to each other. Not an unreasonable assumption on their part, but in fact, it doesn't happen. And finally, our advisors really want professional training opportunities, standards, a way to be recognized as professionals with careers that unfold and develop on the campus. So we had a number of proposals. One proposal was a one-stop shop for transactional things like paying your bill, signing up for certain kinds of things, the kind of things that really can be done efficiently online or in one location with a generalist helping to advise them. And they'd also like a one-stop shop for student activities. Another proposal was the creation of an advising council, a group of senior advising professionals to help advise the campus on advising issues and to implement some of the standards and expectations that we would have for professionals. We also, of course, because part of this is funded by OE, have goals of reducing costs and enhancing revenues. And finally, at a goal of building an online academic commons that would include an information hub, academic planning and registration tools, bill paying tools, and finally, especially for advisors, the advising toolkit. So where are we now? We are in the process of creating a one-stop shop for student transactions in Sproul Hall that will allow a student to come and deal with financial aid, registration, and billing and payment services all in one place. That's slated to open in spring of 2013. We've tabled the one-stop shop for student activities right now as we work through both the transition of the ASUC auxiliary leadership and also all the development around the Lower Sproul project, but I'm sure we will come back to that. And feedback on those can go to Rose Chan-Gi. And finally, before I turn this over to Anne, we are well underway with development on the Advising Council. Its first meeting will occur sometime late this spring with broad campus membership. We've identified 3 deliverables for this activity. One is to create for the campus an advising vision that would have campus-wide goals, expectations, and the definition of what an advisor is and advising is. And this is largely geared to professionals, but it doesn't either reduce the need or the engagement of faculty in the advising process, but this is focused on professional advisors. Second will be a set of deliverables around advisor training and performance standards, a way to bring new advisors on board to the campus and to our campus culture around advising, to provide opportunities for professional development, for career pathways, and of course to include performance appraisals that are really focused on what an advising professional is expected to do, and a way of helping deans, chairs, and others to understand what it is that advisors are expected to do. I'm pleased to announce that we have hired the implementation lead. That's Rebecca Miller. She brings a passion for student services and a wealth of experience to the Advising Council implementation manager position. Most recently, she was the Director of Student Affairs and Industrial Relations in Electrical Engineering and Computer Science. Before that, she was the Director of Student Services in Environmental Science Policy and Management in the College of Natural Resources. She's been responsible for leading a full range of academic services, including advising services for both undergrad and grad students. She has experience on other campuses in financial aid, admissions, residential life, student affairs, and academic outreach and enrichment programs. And she's active in professional organizations such as the National Academic Advising Association and the National Association of Student Personnel Administrators and other student affairs networks. She holds a BA in philosophy from Auburn University and an MS in higher education student affairs administration from Portland State. And so we're very excited and grateful that she has been willing to take on this position for the next 2 years, and we're very much looking forward to working with her. And our feedback loop for all of these, for the Advising Council, is Cynthia Schrager, the Assistant Vice Provost in my office.
Good afternoon. I'm Ann DeLuca. I am the Associate Vice Chancellor for Admissions and Enrollment on campus. I'm very pleased to be here to share with Kathy where we are on a number of these initiatives. There were a few proposals that were particularly related to reducing costs or enhancing revenues, and having the idea that enhanced revenues help to keep future cost increases low. And we are in the middle of a car share analysis. Seamus Wilmot is our lead for that effort, and he is looking at ways that we can eliminate some of the owned and leased cars that departments have on campus that are driven less than 1,000 miles a year, and move to a car share arrangement where departments who need cars for infrequent or short-term engagements can check them out, like a Zipcar, for example. Not that I'm announcing we're partnering with Zipcar, just want you to know, you sort of get the frame of reference. So if you have feedback about that, Seamus is your contact. We had a goal to reduce the cost of the meal plans in our residence halls by 5 cents a meal. And we did that by hiring a dedicated commodity manager and monitoring food waste within Cal Dining. We had previously 3 different commodity managers just within Cal Dining, and they had a bit of an uncoordinated effort with regard to negotiating our prices. So with one dedicated person and with the team in Cal Dining checking to see how much food waste they had each day, they were able to achieve that goal this year. And the result is that they did not have to increase the costs of the meal plans for the next academic year. So we're very glad to see that come to fruition, and they're energized by that and looking for more ways to keep costs low within Cal Dining. Finally, the group proposed that we change the model by which we develop new housing projects on campus and allow third-party developers to take on the initial debt responsibility for those efforts, where the university can lease back or buy back those properties after a period of 20 or 30 years' time. And the campus committee that oversees our planning efforts with regard to capital projects has approved that approach with a site that is at Channing and Ellsworth. That will begin in fall of 2013. And for either the meal plan program or the housing development program, Bob Flaherty in RSSP is your contact and is happy to get feedback from you. All right, student service technology. This is really the heart of the proposals that we had with regard to student-facing service and how we could change the experience for students online. There's not currently OE funding identified that's working on these efforts, but we are in the process of re-benchmarking and will be re-requesting funding soon for these. In the meantime, this year, we did receive bridge funding from 3 partners on campus to move forward with some efforts so that they didn't lose momentum and we could take advantage of opportunities presented. So the IT bank on campus, the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, and Kathy as the Vice Provost, all provided bridge funding to support the Academic Commons, or what we call the Cal Central Portal project, so that it could move forward this year. And we also purchased Ninja Courses, which was software that was developed by 2 Cal students to help students plan their schedules, and is now rebranded as Berkeley Schedule Builder. And it was beta released last October, and it was released to the full campus this month. And just in the course of the first week, we already had 1,500 students who built and saved schedules on Schedule Builder. And so we're very pleased with that forward progress in that area. One of the, I think, most useful and positive outcomes that we had from our student service initiative work was to build a comprehensive campus roadmap for student technology. This had not been done in the past. We had pockets of development related to student technology throughout the campus. They reported up through multiple channels, and we had never put them all on one page. And through a number of efforts with many of you in the room, we put together that information, over 90 different student systems that we currently support on campus, and that students have to navigate in one way or another. And we looked at a risk analysis of all of those systems. Where were we concerned about longevity of systems? Where were we having performance issues? Where were we challenged by systems not being able to communicate with each other? Where did we want to just enhance the front-facing features of those systems so that students had an easier time navigating them? And we also looked at all the funding sources and discovered there are multiple paths to funding, but that we would like to eventually move to a much more coherent and focused effort to collectively agree on some priorities and then move forward in a very planned way to improve systems one by one as we rank them with regard to risk analysis and opportunity for gains in service. I want to let you know that we also have recently hired an implementation lead. Laura Willoughby is here. Laura is our executive director for Student Services Technology Implementation. She has been here all of 4 days. But she is brave, and she is ready to answer your questions in the lobby after this session. She will be building a support team to work on the student service technology projects. So those 5 projects that I mentioned previously, they're going to all be revisited, revised, updated, and brought back to the OE coordinating committee with a new set of recommendations and a refreshed budget request. That's on a timeline to happen this summer, with the goal that in the coming fiscal year, we will have some funding identified where we will begin to work on those priorities that we laid out with regard to the technology projects. And let me tell you a little bit about Laura. She has more than 15 years of experience in information technology, particularly with expertise in project and program management and strategic planning. She's worked in several different industries, including finance, healthcare, and most recently in the energy sector. She earned her master's degree in information systems management from Stevens Institute of Technology. We are thrilled she is on board with us, and she is looking for staff. She is looking for analysts and other folks who want to work with her on these projects. If that's an idea that energizes you, or you know someone who may be a good match for her team, be sure to catch her in the lobby and let her know. All right. That's it for our slides. Do we want to take questions from the group?
Sure.
We're happy to take a few questions here until our time is up, and we'll also be out in the lobby for another half hour.
So, questions here in front?
We have about 10 minutes for questions here. If you have one, could you please use one of the 2 microphones in the aisle so the folks watching online can also hear?
Hi. My question is about the advising council and just what that looks like. Are those positions you're hiring or people you're culling from campus? Can you just tell me more about what the council is?
So it is not, it's a volunteer organization that will be senior leads. And Cynthia, are you out here somewhere? Do you want to comment on that, please?
Oh, no,
You got to use a mic one way or the other. Yep. You can come up here.
Yeah, she was asking how we would determine the membership of the advising council. Right now, we're establishing criteria for that. One of the key criteria is going to be individuals on campus who manage significant advising resources and who are in a position to actually influence change and implement change within their units. We're also going to be making sure that we have representation across all of the key areas on campus that have advisors working in them. So that would include all of the areas under the provost, equity and inclusion, student affairs, graduate division, administration, I think, actually, when you think about the Tang Center. So we're also going to have at least, we're recommending at this point, some student representation from ASUC and Grad Assembly, as well as some academic Senate representation. We're going to seek input from the Senate about which committees they would like to give input, but obviously some of the ones we would look to would be Grad Council, CEP, the committee that deals with student affairs, and the committee that deals with diversity. So the other thing I'll mention is that we also are going to be setting up some working groups, which will have leadership from members of the advising council, but we'll also be tapping subject matter experts across the campus who aren't sitting on the council for those working groups, and we have not determined the membership of those working groups yet, but they would be organized around the key areas that Kathy talked about. Professional training and development, assessment, and also the overall vision for advising.
We suggest for the advising council to develop a mechanism for student input in addition to ASUC members. But I would think that the students probably have the most expertise on what's needed on these topics.
Let me just mention that part of Laura Willoughby's team will involve a position for a recent Cal grad to act as the liaison between her operations on the technology side and the various student groups. And we had a long discussion this morning about how to engage students beyond the ASUC leadership or the usual suspects who've been really great, but we would like to have more students from across the campus involved in this. Just Harry and Shel Wagner and I all have advisory groups, and we have engaged all 3 of our advisory groups over the last 2 years in conversations in this, as well as student surveys and a number of other things. But we want a more active and direct engagement as we move forward into the actual implementation.
Hi.
Other
Yes, I have
questions?
one.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more about the Cal Central, the technology space, and sort of what the scope is going to be of services that are included, and what the connection is going to be towards outside groups, and sort of in terms of either linking to pages or developing pages, and sharing that shared space so we can get our resources to students as well.
Yes, I'd be happy to. So the Cal Central vision is very comprehensive, and it even extends beyond students and advising staff to encompass faculty members and administrators, ultimately really as a home for campus transactions. I think the goal initially with Cal Central is to be that one landing place for students, so that at least for those big systems or services that they use, I'm thinking of B-Space, I'm thinking of Bearfax or Telebears, the Sallie Mae bill paying function. At least there's one space you start and one way to enter all of that information, and you don't have to know that it's Bearfax or that it's Telebears. You just know you start there, and based on what you want to do, it will feed you to the right space. I think there's a vision that at the college or department level, you're feeding information to students by pushing messages or by pushing emails to certain populations, and that ultimately, like you said, you would be linking back to active ways to engage students. But initially, I think at the departmental or school or college level, it would be pushing some information to students and then ultimately providing ways to move backwards towards their unique departmental connections.
Any other questions? Great. Well, if not, we will see you in the lobby. Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, please join me in thanking